Have you ever thought of a place where mountains meet directly with the ocean, forming scenes reminiscent of cinematic scenes? What if in that same environment there were ancient forests inhabited by creatures present in our collective imagination? Today, let's discover together one of the most impressive and little explored regions of Canada, wild British Columbia. Imagine breathing in the pure, invigorating air of snow-capped mountains directly contrasting with the vibrant green of temperate rainforests. Here, vigorous rivers cross deep valleys, while crystal-clear lakes daily mirror the sky in a unique spectacle of light and colors. Humpback whales cross the horizon, eagles fly freely above the clouds, and brown bears walk calmly along the riverbanks, looking like the rightful owners of this impressive scenery. But it's not just natural wealth that makes British Columbia a unique territory. It is also its little-known stories, its indigenous traditions deeply linked to the land, and the secrets hidden in places as impressive as they are remote that make this region truly surprising. In this documentary, we reveal the lesser-known and more fascinating side of British Columbia. You will discover remarkable curiosities, visit emblematic places such as Yoho National Park, Vancouver Island and the Canadian Rockies, as well as explore secret places that rarely appear in traditional tourist guides. Get ready to discover, be surprised, and feel intensely the power of nature. Are you ready to explore these little visited locations? Come with us and enjoy a unique experience in British Columbia. British Columbia, one of the most fascinating territories in Canada, goes far beyond the beautiful images that usually appear on postcards. This impressive setting is the stage for secrets and stories that awaken the imagination and reveal the wealth hidden in this unique region. Have you ever heard of a mysterious giant wave that appears in completely calm waters? This is exactly what happens in Kootenay Lake, located in southeastern British Columbia. Known among locals as the Kootenay Lake Monster, this intriguing wave has been recorded for more than a century by local residents and indigenous people from the Tanaxa and Senex tribes. Some suggest scientific explanations linked to underground seismic activities or unknown deep currents, but many still believe in a legendary creature that would be behind this phenomenon. Interestingly, over the years, dozens of reports and testimonies have further reinforced this legend, transforming the lake into a must-visit spot for adventurers and mystery lovers. But if you like real historical mysteries, you might not yet know the surprising story of the ghost town of Barkerville. Founded in 1862 after Billy Barker discovered gold in the region, Barkerville quickly grew into one of the most prosperous and bustling cities in North America. At its peak, almost 10,000 inhabitants lived there in search of their fortune, and entire streets were alive with theaters, hotels, gaming halls, and bustling businesses. However, as gold became scarce, the city was abandoned and literally froze in time. Today, Barkerville is an incredible, carefully preserved museum town where visitors can walk the dirt streets and visit ancient buildings as if they were living in the 19th century. Many say they still feel a mysterious presence there, perhaps from former residents who never really left. Another curious and tasty story from British Columbia is the origin of the Nanaimo bar, an irresistible dessert made with chocolate, coconut, crushed biscuits, and a generous layer of buttery cream. This sweet became so popular in Canada that it is now a national symbol of local sweet cuisine. However, no one knows its original creator. Created around 1950 in the coastal city of Nanaimo, locals still search for clues to solve this gastronomic mystery. The municipality has even held competitions in the hope of finding the true creator, but without success so far. This way, the story remains fun, flavorful, and deliciously mysterious. As you delve into the dense forests of British Columbia, don't be surprised to hear stories about the legendary Sasquatch, also known as the Canadian Bigfoot. This creature, described as a tall, hairy, humanoid-looking being, has populated the imagination of the region for generations, especially among the Salish and Halkomelem indigenous tribes. Records of sightings, gigantic footprints found on the trails, and strange sounds in the depths of the forest further reinforce the belief in this legend, attracting tourists, researchers, and curious people who want to unravel the mystery of the Sasquatch's existence to this day. Even without concrete evidence, the legend remains alive and deeply integrated into local culture. Did you also know that there is a tropical forest in British Columbia, even though it is in the middle of Canada? This natural wonder is called the Great Bear Rainforest, one of the largest temperate rainforests on the planet. Located on the Canadian West Coast, this forest is the habitat of very rare animals, such as the Kermode bear, also known as the spirit bear, famous for its white fur that stands out among the green, humid trees. Furthermore, coastal wolves in this region have learned to swim in the ocean and hunt fish directly in salt water, something absolutely unusual for these animals. The Great Bear Rainforest is an ecological gem protected by environmentalists and local communities who have fought for decades to preserve it, demonstrating the unique and irreplaceable value of this enchanting forest. Even more surprising for many people is discovering that it is possible to surf in Canada, a country generally associated with snow and cold. In the small town of Tofino, located on Vancouver Island, there is a rare natural phenomenon that transforms the city into a world reference point for surfing. During the colder months, storms in the Pacific Ocean create perfect waves, attracting international surfers. Equipped with special clothing that protects against the intense cold, these adventurers enjoy incredible waves in a setting that mixes wild beaches, forest-covered mountains, and the unique charm of a coastal village. Tofino has become not just a sports destination, but a way of life for many. Among the most fascinating cultural traditions, the salmon potlatch stands out, celebrated by indigenous communities for centuries. This ceremony takes place annually to honor the return of salmon to the region's rivers. With typical dances, sacred chants, offerings, and dishes prepared with fresh fish, the festival is an emotional demonstration of gratitude and deep connection with nature. Indigenous people understand salmon as a divine gift, a symbol of abundance and prosperity, and potlatch keeps this ancestral tradition alive, teaching respect and balance with the local land and waters. Finally, a historical curiosity that few know is that Vancouver, the largest city in British Columbia, is the birthplace of Greenpeace, one of the most important environmental movements in the world. In 1971, a small group of local activists, outraged by American nuclear tests carried out in the Pacific, decided to take action. Aboard an old fishing boat called Greenpeace, they set out to protest, drawing global attention and giving rise to an environmental movement that would transform the planet. Today, Vancouver is proud of this pioneering past, reinforcing its identity as a sustainable and ecological city, a global reference in environmental protection. Now, tell us, which of these stories did you already know, and which one surprised you the most? Leave your answer in the comments. British Columbia is a region that surprises with its unique combination of magnificent landscapes, vivid cultural traditions, and iconic destinations capable of moving any visitor. A trip here is like opening a window to scenes that seem like something out of a dream, permeated by fascinating stories, memorable adventures, and an incomparable natural wealth. Starting this adventure through the famous Canadian Rockies, we arrive at Yoho National Park. When you step into this impressive territory, you are greeted by a landscape that mixes the intense turquoise blue of glacial lakes with the luminous white of snow-capped mountains. Emerald Lake is, without a doubt, the park's most precious jewel. Walking the trails that surround the lake, under the shadow of imposing mountain peaks, is almost like being inside a living painting. Take the opportunity to visit Takakaw Falls, one of the highest in Canada, at 373 meters high, where the force of the waters offers an unforgettable spectacle. Fun fact, the name Yoho comes from an indigenous expression that means admiration, exactly the feeling you will have in this place. Have you ever visited Yoho National Park? Comment below what your experience was. The second stop is Victoria, the charming capital of British Columbia, located on the southern tip of Vancouver Island. This charming city maintains a distinctly British atmosphere, reflected in its historic architecture, manicured gardens, and elegant customs. Butcher Gardens is a must-see, with its flower gardens meticulously tended year-round. Another unique experience is afternoon tea at the iconic Fairmont Empress Hotel, a centuries-old tradition inherited from English colonizers. Interestingly, Victoria is considered one of the most cycle-friendly cities in the world, allowing you to explore its historic secrets on two wheels. Don't miss the opportunity to go whale watching nearby, where you can spot humpback whales, orcas, and sea lions. Have you visited Victoria? Comment below what your experience was. We head to the vibrant city of Vancouver, a metropolis surrounded by lush nature and considered one of the best to live in the world. When walking through Stanley Park, you will immediately feel the perfect harmony between urbanization and wild nature. This giant urban park offers miles of trails, beaches, and a stunning panoramic view of the Vancouver skyline. The city is also a cultural reference, with neighborhoods such as Gastown, full of restaurants and historic shops, and Granville Island, where a traditional market showcases the region's gastronomic and artistic diversity. Don't miss the Capilano Suspension Bridge, a suspension bridge that crosses a coniferous forest with dizzying views that challenge the senses. Have you ever been to Vancouver? Comment below what your experience was. Heading inland, our trip takes us to the Okanagan Valley, famous for its wineries and Mediterranean-like scenery. The region has a hot and dry climate, perfect for the production of internationally renowned wines. Cities like Kelowna and Penticton delight visitors with their award-winning wineries, exclusive tastings, and unforgettable views of vineyards that slope toward crystal-clear lakes. Take the opportunity to taste the region's fresh fruits, especially peaches and cherries, famous for their unique sweetness. In summer, the lakes offer opportunities to snorkel, kayak, or simply relax by the water while enjoying a glass of local wine. Have you ever visited Okanagan? Comment below what your experience was. Continuing our journey, we arrive in the historic city of Nelson, a quirky and charming place on the shores of Kootenay Lake. Nelson is famous for its artistic atmosphere, historic architecture, and relaxed lifestyle. The city's historic center preserves colorful buildings from the beginning of the 20th century, many of which have been transformed into cafes, art galleries, and small independent shops. Here you can experience the alternative culture that attracts artists and travelers looking for a different lifestyle. During winter, the nearby mountains offer great conditions for skiing, while in summer the lake is ideal for boating, stand-up paddleboarding, and sport fishing. Local curiosity. Nelson has been the setting for films and series due to its picturesque and timeless atmosphere. Have you ever been to Nelson? Comment below what your experience was. Our next iconic destination is the coastal city of Tofino, situated on Vancouver Island. This seaside paradise combines temperate rainforests with wild beaches, where powerful Pacific waves attract surfers from around the world. Surfing in the cold waters of Tofino, wearing special clothing that protects against the cold, has become a unique lifestyle in the region. Plus, hikes along the Pacific Rim National Park Trail reveal stunning scenery, with ancient trees, dramatic cliffs, and secluded beaches. An unmissable activity is watching storms in winter, when giant waves collide against the rocks, creating intense and dramatic natural spectacles. Have you ever been to Tofino? Comment below what your experience was. Now we embark towards Wells Gray Provincial Park, one of the wildest and most preserved natural areas in Canada. The park is home to spectacular waterfalls like Helmkin Falls, which plunges more than 140 meters into a gorge surrounded by dramatic rock walls. Wilderness trails take you to isolated locations where you can watch bears, elk, and deer roam free in their natural habitat. The experience here is truly unforgettable, especially when camping under a starry sky, listening to the sound of waterfalls in the background. Fun fact, the park is affectionately nicknamed Land of Waterfalls due to its more than 40 cataloged waterfalls. Have you visited Wells Gray? Comment below what your experience was. We continued on to Whistler, famous worldwide as a winter sports destination and host of the 2010 Winter Olympics. With its majestic mountains, Whistler Blackham offers some of the best skiing and snowboarding in the world. But the region goes far beyond winter. In summer, its trails are perfect for mountain biking, hiking, zip lines, and gondola rides with panoramic views that take your breath away. Be sure to visit the charming village, full of cafes, restaurants, and sophisticated shops, where you can relax after a day full of adventure. Have you ever been to Whistler? Comment below what your experience was. We continue our journey to Haida Gwaii, a remote and fascinating archipelago known as the Galapagos Islands of Canada. This magical place preserves the Haida culture, one of the most important and ancient indigenous tribes in Canada. Visit historic villages and get to know the traditions, art, and spirituality of the local people up close. The islands are also famous for their unique biodiversity, including species found nowhere else in the world. Unmissable activities include kayaking and whale watching amidst untouched and surprising nature. Have you ever been to Haida Gwaii? Comment below what your experience was. Our trip ends in the stunning Great Bear Rainforest, the magical forest of coastal British Columbia, home to the legendary Kermode bear. Known as the spirit bear, this temperate forest is one of the richest and most preserved on the planet. Sailing through the fjords, walking among gigantic trees, and observing wildlife is an almost mystical experience that will remain etched in your memory forever. Have you visited any of these iconic places in British Columbia? Tell us below what your favorite experience was in this extraordinary region. When we think of British Columbia, grand images of snow-capped mountains, glacial lakes, and vibrant cities immediately come to mind. However, in addition to the best-known destinations, there are almost secret places, small villages and natural reserves that hold incredible stories, rare traditions, and experiences capable of deeply touching the senses of those who visit them. One of these surprising places is Telegraph Cove, a picturesque seaside village tucked away on the northern tip of Vancouver Island. When you get there, you immediately notice the salty aroma of the Pacific Ocean, mixed with the scent of the aged wood of the houses built on stilts. Walking through the small harbor, you hear the gentle creaking of the pier boards beneath your feet and the distant sound of the whales and orcas that frequently ply these crystal clear waters. Originally a 1920s telegraph office, Telegraph Cove is now famous for whale watching. There, we met Bill McKay, a local fisherman and guide who has dedicated more than 3 decades to tracking whales. Bill is especially known for helping to save a young orca trapped in fishing nets. To this day, residents claim that the same whale returns periodically, recognizing the sound of Bill's voice. Trying artisanal smoked salmon, there is a unique sensory experience. Soft, with a smoky aroma and a sweet salty flavor, revealing all the maritime richness of the region. Another hidden gem in the mountains of Vancouver Island is Cumberland, an old mining village that holds stories marked by European, Chinese, and Japanese workers who arrived in search of coal in the 19th century. The quiet streets of this place have aromas that mix the smell of fresh bread from small artisanal bakeries with the clean, fresh fragrance of the nearby forests. Cumberland Bakery is famous for its naturally fermented bread, with a crispy crust and soft interior, which has become a local gastronomic symbol. Walking along the nearby trails, especially at night, visitors often hear soft whispers or light footsteps, fueling the famous local legend of the Lady in White, a young bride who mysteriously disappeared in the forest more than a century ago, keeping curiosity and mystery alive among residents and tourists to this day. Moving further into the Gulf Islands, we find Salt Spring Island, famous for its regional markets and vibrant arts community. On Saturday mornings, the Saturday Market becomes a festival of scents, colors, and sounds. Fresh herbs, artisanal cheeses, freshly picked flowers, and live folk music create an enchanting atmosphere. A local specialty is the island's goat cheese, creamy and smooth, made by hand on small family farms, where visitors can even watch the process. Hannah, a local potter, says while molding vases with natural patterns, that Salt Spring's most enchanting tradition is the desire stones, small painted stones left by residents and visitors around the island, forming a kind of secret map of the hopes and dreams of those who pass by. Hidden among the Central Coast Mountains, the remote Bella Coola Valley is one of British Columbia's least known and most fascinating nature reserves. To reach the valley, you have to cross winding roads and dramatic gorges. As you descend to Bella Coola, you immediately feel the moist, temperate rainforest air, with intense aromas of cedar and moss, while sounds of indigenous drums echo in the distance during Nuksak ceremonies. Here, the indigenous ancestral tradition is alive in every corner. Among the flavors, salmonberry stands out, a native wild fruit with a sweet acid flavor used in typical local dishes. Residents often speak of the spirit of waters, a mystical entity that protects rivers and waterfalls, often seen as a blue mist at dawn, guaranteeing safety and peace to those who respect the valley. On the shores of Kootenai Lake, surrounded by majestic mountains, lies Caslow, a village reminiscent of classic movie scenes. Quiet streets, with historic wooden houses painted in pastel colors, provide an immediate feeling of welcome. The air is always permeated by the soft scent of flowers that decorate the windows and balconies of old houses. During the summer, the city comes alive with the Caslo Jazz, etc. Festival, an unusual event where musicians play on a floating stage on the lake. Visitors and locals relax on the banks, listening to jazz and blues melodies that gently echo through the mountains. In local coffee shops, artisanally roasted coffee is served with an intense flavor and striking aroma. A well-known local story is that of old fisherman Frank, who once caught a giant trout in Kootenai Lake. It is believed that she was as large as a small boat. The story has become legendary, still fueling lively conversations in local coffee shops. Further up, hidden in the Monashee Mountains, we find Rossland, a village known as the birthplace of competitive skiing in Canada. The aroma of wood burning in the fireplaces of wooden houses accompanies visitors as they walk through the welcoming and quiet streets. During the winter, the predominant sounds are the laughter and happy chatter of skiers descending the slopes of Red Mountain. At night, locals and tourists gather at local microbreweries, where craft beers like those from Rossland Beer Company bring unique, full-bodied flavors. Annie, affectionately nicknamed the Mountain Lady, became a local role model. At age 80, he still skis every day, inspiring younger generations with his energy and passion for life in the sky. His story is always shared in conversation circles around local bonfires. Finally, we find the Cowichan Valley, a valley hidden between gentle green hills and lush forests, famous for its family-owned wineries. When visiting this region, the aroma of ripe grapes on the vines mixes with the pure country air, providing a unique sensory experience. Local wines, especially Pinot Noir and Ortega, are recognized for their delicacy and elegance, the result of the careful dedication of local producers. In addition to wineries, the Cowichan Valley holds strong indigenous traditions, especially in the art of handmade knitwear by the Cowichan tribe. When visiting small local shops, you can hear the soft noise of spinning wheels while feeling the soft, warm texture of clothes made from pure wool. A well-known character in the community is Mary, an elderly indigenous woman who dedicated her life to preserving and teaching the ancestral technique of Cowichan weaving. Their stories are often shared at the village's cultural gatherings, keeping alive a tradition that spans generations. Each of these 7 hidden destinations reveals lesser-known, but deeply charming and authentic aspects of British Columbia. They offer much more than simple tourism. They provide a human, sensorial, and cultural experience capable of transforming visitors in a part of these stories. After all, they are places that invite you not only to discover, but to deeply feel everything that this fascinating region of Canada has to offer. If you could travel to British Columbia right now, what experience would be at the top of your list? Have you ever thought about kayaking alongside humpback whales? Or perhaps taking a night walk through ancient forests, listening to stories about local legends? Maybe you prefer something more cultural, like participating in traditional indigenous festivals or exploring historic villages forgotten by time. Tell us in the comments which adventure captures your imagination the most. One of the most curious cultural traditions in British Columbia is potlatch, a typical festival of the local indigenous peoples, especially the Kwakwaka'wakw, Haida, and Nuxalk. Potlatch is a unique event that involves ceremonial dancing, singing, distribution of gifts and food, symbolizing generosity and community respect. At these celebrations, families offer valuable gifts to guests to demonstrate wealth and social prestige. It is common that, during potlatch, there are performances with incredible masks, carved from cedar wood and painted with vibrant colors, representing spirits and mythical creatures. Have you ever imagined participating in a ceremony like this? Let us know if you've seen something similar or would like to try this unique tradition. Another local curiosity is the habit known as wave, especially in small towns and villages. It is customary among local residents to discreetly wave 2 fingers behind the wheel when they encounter another car on the road. This simple gesture is a traditional way of saying hello and showing kindness and cordiality. Many tourists are surprised by this custom and take some time to realize that this interaction is completely natural between local residents. Do you know of other places that have curious gestures like this? Share your experiences in the comments. In British Columbia, there is also a very curious superstition involving the famous indigenous totems. According to some local traditions, you should never point directly at a totem with your index finger, as this would be considered disrespectful or even a bad omen. These totems represent family stories, ancestors, and protective spirits of indigenous tribes. Some locals advise visitors to use an open palm or chin to indicate the details of these fascinating monuments. Did you already know this superstition? Is there something similar in your culture? Another enchanting celebration in the region is the Nanaimo Marine Festival, held every year in the coastal city of Nanaimo, also famous for the delicious local dessert, Nanaimo Bar. This festival includes a fun competition called the Bathtub Race, where participants cross the city's bay in small boats built from repurposed old bathtubs. The event is always accompanied by laughter, live music, and typical food. Have you ever imagined participating in or watching something so unusual? Tell us in the comments if there is a different event like this in your region, or if you would like to experience the Nanaimo Marine Festival. Have you ever heard of the tradition of thunderstorms in Tofino? Many visitors travel to this small coastal town on Vancouver Island, especially in winter, to watch the powerful Pacific Ocean storms. Tourists stay comfortably in seaside huts to watch giant waves crash against the rocks, creating an impressive natural spectacle. For local residents, these storms have a symbolic meaning of renewal and strength. Would you have the courage to try this intense experience? Tell us in the comments. Another curious tradition takes place in the historic town of Barkerville, an old mining village from the Gold Rush era. There, residents and traders often wear typical 19th century clothing, recreating historical scenes live. You can enter a restaurant or hotel and be greeted by waiters dressed like the Old West, interacting with visitors in a completely immersive environment. How about experiencing a little of this time travel? Do you like this kind of interactive historical experience? Finally, there's a very peculiar gastronomic tradition in the region. During summer festivals, especially in the interior of British Columbia, residents gather for a community barbecue known as Salmon Barbecue, where wild salmon is slowly roasted over open fires, seasoned with local herbs, and served with sweet corn and fresh vegetables grown there. This is one of the region's most delicious and symbolic culinary traditions, reflecting the residents' strong connection with local natural resources. Have you ever tried something similar? What would be your first gastronomic choice in this region? Now it's up to you. Which of these British Columbia cultural experiences or traditions would you most like to experience personally? Also tell us if you know of other fascinating traditions, or if you have had the opportunity to visit any of these incredible places. Let's share these stories in the comments and discover even more about this spectacular region of Canada. Exploring British Columbia goes far beyond admiring beautiful landscapes. It means living unique experiences, discovering surprising traditions, and having remarkable encounters with a nature that seems to speak directly to us. From the grand peaks of the Rocky Mountains to the charming hidden villages, from the pristine beaches of Tofino to the indigenous stories preserved for generations, each place visited reinforced how this Canadian region can deeply affect our emotions. On this trip, we discover special places such as the mysterious Kootenay Lake and the rich tradition of potlatch. We taste unique and unforgettable flavors, such as the famous Nanaimo Bar sweets and salmon roasted on traditional community fires. We also had the opportunity to spend time with welcoming people who welcome visitors with friendliness and simplicity. British Columbia is not just a tourist destination. It's a place to feel, admire, and never forget. Every moment lived here reinforces the idea that traveling is much more than taking physical souvenirs. It is acquiring stories that change our perception of the world. Now it's your turn. What was the most memorable moment of this trip for you? Leave it in the comments. If you enjoyed learning a little more about this incredible destination, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to follow the next videos. The world is full of extraordinary places waiting for us. See you soon.